So I don't do groups, even neurodiverse groups. I don't do copy thing, and I don't just see. I wouldn't, whether it was a ND group or an autistic group. I still wouldn't blindly just copy the group or the party line, because I like to think for myself, and I'm more into truth, the pursuit of truth and fact, and yeah, I just like to do my own thing, maverick or whatever you call it. But I think, like, there's a lot of controversy about, if when, like, NTs want social status, right? So they might fake autism, or ND. They might fake some kind of condition, right? And I'm in two minds, and I'm sure people, neurodiverse or autistic people, will be upset about that. But I think, I don't know, as long as they're not harming me. I think the thing that would really bother me would be if they said, oh, I was good to autistic people all along, all the years ago, when it was brutal and you were getting attacked and things. I would think no, that would wind me up more than them, faking ND or faking autism to get some kind of social status. It just is what it is, and I think that the infrastructure, so, some ND people might say NTs rule the world, or whatever. It's not a conscious thing, I would say. It's not, they don't sit there coming up with a plan to, I think, honestly, it's like, say, if 90% of people are right-handed, it's not that people are sitting there thinking, oh, how can I attack left-handed people? It's just a bit like the Pareto distribution. It's just the way the infrastructure is at that time, and it sounds a bit bad, maybe a bit frustrating, again, for ND and autistic people, but I think that it just infrastructure-wise, it wouldn't make sense if 90%, if we compare ND and autism to left-handedness, if 90% of the people are right-handed, or NT, whatever analogy or metaphor, if 90% of people are that mainstream direction, then infrastructure-wise, it makes no sense. It just really wouldn't make sense, to have all the infrastructure in the tiny, minority position, neuro minority. It just infrastructure, wise, it wouldn't make sense putting like railings on for left-handers when 90% were right. It just would be illogical. So I think part of it is just a nature thing, that it naturally occurring. It just kind of is what it is, and it just kind of happens partially naturally. I'm not saying 100%. I think so. Yeah, in my opinion, I don't really care if they get, if they fake it, like these people that change their race or whatever. I'm really not bothered if an NT wants to, like this stuff on the hard left about you identify as well. If they want to identify as neurodiverse or autistic, even though they're NT, I really don't care. As I say, the thing that would bother me the most would be them saying, as a collective, NT society, saying, oh yeah, we were good to you, or years ago, or someone said to me quite recently, which I thought was funny, ND and autistic people aren't oppressed anymore. That's something that happened years ago, and I just thought, okay, that was quite funny. And it's very sad, and again, I'm not saying they're all sitting, NTs are all sitting there coming up with some kind of plan, to get people or whatever. But maybe subconsciously or semi-subconsciously, because the society, everything's based around the 9 till 5, £5 an hour, £10, or whatever it is, the mainstream thing, which is fine. The only problem I have is forcing non-members or right-brain creative people to be forcibly physically forced to take part in the mainstream side. That bothers me, the force. But it will bother me anything left or right or diagonal, whatever you were. If you physically, like religious extremism, need to force someone to be your system, then that's very neurotic and mentally disturbed, in my opinion. Whatever direction you are, just let, as they say, what is it? Let, I can't think of the word. Each to their own, I think is what I'm saying. As long as you're not doing anything to anyone, just each to their own. Just let people get on with their particular way of doing it, And that goes for NTs too, but as I say, it would bother me, that kind of stuff. And again, I'm sure it's subconscious and well-meaning, but it definitely bothers me when I hear that, when it's like, oh, we've been good to you all along, or, yeah, no. I think the pettiness and the ganging up on, and the having the cake and eating it. So the having the cake and eating it is like, oh, we were always nice to, while physically attacking you, ganging up on you, 5-1, 10-1, because you did some very minor thing that it isn't even to do with autistic culture, to do with NT culture, but because you did some kind of infraction of a rule that they made up on the spot anyway, you're the bad guy, because you wore slightly odd socks, one was orange and one was red or something, and they go ballistic, and it's petty, and it probably is fear-based, it probably is, and people have told me that there's probably, a partial truth in that statement, that it's fear-based, and you get in the NT group, it's not a democracy. You get the normal leader, what I call the normal's a synonym for NT. You get the normal leader, and then again 90% the Pareto number, 90% copy, and just sort of go on, and it just sort of ends up happening. But which is what it is. Everyone has their struggles, but to go through that and then be told, oh, we're liberal, we're left wing, we love neuro minorities and ND people, notice. No, you can't have both. You just can't. I'm sorry. You can treat me whatever, but you can't have both. That's just a no. And the other thing is, and again, probably is subconscious or semi-subconscious, but they tend to lock out non-NT people from the society, maybe, as I say, semi-accidentally. I'm not saying everyone's, have these Machiavellian things to it, that NT society has this thing out to get people, or I'm not saying that, but, I used to go to an autistic group, and there was an individual that could speak, it was in the range of about 9, 10, 11 languages, very, very bright, And this is going to be so common throughout the Western world, whether it's North America, England, or Europe, or anywhere, right, is that you're going to have people, that can't tie their shoelaces, but they might have 3 PhDs, or they have 4 master's degrees, but they can't tie their shoelaces, things that NTs just can't really understand. And it's to do with energy distribution. So the energy, for me, as people know, I've written down on my list, but it seems to be better if I do it with the face and the verbal side, is, for me, it's like ghostology, the quantum physics of ghosts, which is really interesting, the non-quantifiable, sort of the quantum physics of woo-woo, if you like, sort of, it's where science and mysticism meet, or whatever you want to call that sort of border, that interface, that grey area, the hybrid area, the third path, the non-binary, the non-left right hemisphere of the brain. What's that? There could be an extra path outside of that, this non-rigid sort of non-duality, if you like. But it's, for me, it's the quantum physics of ghosts, it's metaphysics, it's theology, geology, maps, HEMA, WMA, no-gi, judo, etc., right? Single-edged swords, blah, 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 right? Keep going on, a huge repertoire. But then, as I say, every day, filling in forms, not really able to, talking normal language, not really able to, which, as I say, wouldn't be a problem if 99.9% of the infrastructure of the Western world wasn't based on NT language. Again, I'm not blaming anyone, it just, like left and right-handed, it just kind of is the way nature designed it, I guess. So, you know, that ability, which probably with genetic determinism or, you know, soft and hard determinism within Western philosophy, if it is genetic, which it looks like a lot of my abilities are, then does that make them meaningless as a philosophical, as a question in Western philosophy? I don't know. You know, some people say it's not the cards, it's how you play them that's important. But certainly things like doing the splits and things, I can't take any credit for putting hard work into that. And I feel like that's one of the NT's favourite words, so-called hard work, you know, hard hyphen work, or, you know, all one word. It's the way they use it and things is, in my opinion, quite bizarre and ridiculous. You know, and then you've got like ND and autism energy depletion, where you're depleting things like that, which isn't based on NT's energy at all. But again, all to do with infrastructure. So I think what I'm saying is that all my special interests, like geology, metaphysics, quantum physics of ghosts, no-gi, single-edged swords, etc., off-grid, fire building stuff, TPs, comes at the cost of not being able to fill out any forms, not having your own home, not having what's the word I'm looking for? All I'm saying is it comes at a price, and it's a bit like again in the mysticism, like the concept of sacrifice in theology. You know, that the energy has to come from somewhere. So, and it's a sort of, within the physical 3D world, is a sort of finite system. So if you have, you know, very high energy with all these subjects, then it takes away from other areas. So it's to do with energy distribution. So with the NT society, that NT culture, NT society is extremely good at the middle, the average, the mainstream everyday sort of middle ground stuff, right? Which is not, please don't anyone misconstrue me, that I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing. It's neutral, right? But I'm just saying that is what that culture specialises in, right? But it has this very, and again, this is universal to every nationality and every culture, but it certainly does, and again, it might be semi-conscious or subconscious, it certainly does look down on non-members and ND people, and autistic people. You know, and then someone could say to me, well, you only care because you personally are autistic and ND, and you personally only care about your solo situation. I mean, again, that's a sort of utilitarian argument within Western philosophy, which I'm not sure I agree, because I want to help NT people that are, you know, poor, that are financially, you know, I want to help a lot of things, you know, but I don't have any really power to do things. But so I don't think that's true. I think that's a sort of straw man, a falsely constructed argument, you know, an artificially sort of plastic constructed argument. But I would say, yeah, again, left and right handed. It's the 90% stuff based on the NT infrastructure is just the way nature designed, at least for the time being, right? So some of it, I can't, a lot of it, you probably can't really blame on, but they're having the cake and eating it. They're saying they were always nice to ND and autistic people. No, you can't have both. Sorry, I don't agree with that. And as I say, the person recently that said to me that NDs and autistics aren't oppressed is not. Look, I'm sure that person came from a place of very good-heartedness and well-meaningness, but it's just not true. And I mean, even for, you know, like NT Westerners now, you know, it's this economy and all sorts, and the cost of finances crisis and all that. But anyway, we're not going into that. I'm just, I think, saying, and I think it'll always be difficult with ND and autistic if you have it, right? Because first of all, there's the internal conflict. So if you're like me, there's going to be, you might find an autistic or an ND group, and there's going to be internal conflicts because whether the group is an ND group or an NT group, when a group tells me what to do or an individual, I just can't, if the rule is illogical, I'm not doing it. And I don't do copythink, because copythink just isn't, I'm into, again, the pursuit of truth and fact, right? To the highest, but maybe if I can get 80% or 90%, 100.0 is probably, I don't know, impossible for a human being. But so I don't really do groupthink and copythink, whatever brain direction the group is in, brain orientation, right, or neuro direction. But and you know, some people say, you know, NTs culture cheats because it groups together and blah blah blah. And yeah, maybe, I don't know. I really don't know. I think some of the aspects of that culture are so bizarre that I've almost given up trying to understand them. I think part of the weirdness with the NT culture, and notice I say NT culture, I'm not talking about every single or even, you know, whatever percent. I'm just saying it's the culture. Like Patrice O'Neill used to talk on the Sirius radio show about European Americans and African Americans, blah, blah, and would say it's not you as an individual, it's the way the country is. It's not you as an individual, you know, it's the way the country-wide situation is. And I feel like that with autism and ND is that it's just sort of, again, the way the whole big picture is. But they will even sort of block you out for being a non-member, again, maybe subconscious or semi-conscious, to the detriment of themselves. So you might have a neurodiverse person that invents the iPad or the smartphone, which NTs love, you know. But then that person, when they're in the process, say in the 1900s or whenever they're inventing, you know, an electric car or whatever the thing is, whatever era the thing is, right? In that era that ND person is inventing that technology, the NTs will be pretty ruthless with them and call them all sorts of names and attack their clothes and the way that, you know, the way they look and all these things, character assassination. But then not see that, like, that person invented this stuff for you, and the ungratefulness is incredible. But again, if there's subconscious, then whatever. But it seems, again, like they're having the cake and eating it. But maybe that requires self-awareness, which there is almost zero of in NT culture. And again, I say NT culture, I'm not talking about every single one or even the majority of NTs. I'm just sort of talking about the way the culture is, right? Because it's not, I don't like to point fingers at, you know, people or individuals or whatever. So I say NT culture, I never see an NT person or an NT individual or whatever, right? I don't really point fingers because it's not productive. And I think that a lot of the stuff within ND and autistic bubbles are sort of like hard left, woke sort of, you know, and it's not productive. It's really not, because it's an endless circle. And Ouroboros, in Western philosophy, the word Ouroboros is a snake or I think it's a dog. Anyway, it's an animal that chases its own tail constantly, right? Ouroboros. Okay, it's a ancient Latin word. And it's not productive, because you might be a cis, male, straight, human, whatever, that's neurodiverse, right? Then you're always saying about how NTs should be liberal, and then someone will say to you, well, you're a straight Western male, so I need reparations of you. And then the person saying that to you might be a Western feminist, and then non-Western feminists might say to them, well, then, you know, it's just everyone just goes bananas, and it's just not that left stuff and the woke. It's just, stay away. It's just not. I understand people want to say NT privilege, but as I say, if you're a cis straight male and you're saying that, you know, NT privilege or NT give you reparation, but then a trans male or whatever you call it might say to you, well actually no, you're straight cis male, so you've got to give me reparations. And then someone might be double, quadruple trans, and they might say to the single trans person, well, actually you oppressed, you know, and we go bananas. We just go absolutely bananas, and everyone just goes ballistic. And it's just like the film Ghostbusters 2, you know, with the negative energy and blah blah blah. We won't go into that mysticism because probably not productive either, but, you know, it's to do with metaphysics and occultism and mysticism and negative energy and being released into the atmosphere, which is kind of where we are nowadays in this era. Whether people want to believe it or not doesn't really matter. It doesn't have a bearing on the facts. But yes, just stay away from the hard left stuff, and institutions maybe, and maybe a translator for ND and autistic people, like the way language translators, you know, the way you can translate from a foreign language to, you know, English or something in the West, in North America and England and etc. Maybe, but the problem is that NT language is 90% non-verbal and based on brackets. Brackets are, you know, that they will say, you know, so in their language, you know, they will say, oh, this is a pen, you know, wink, wink, and then there's a bracket and a translation, and there's always some kind of indirect sort of, you know, wishy-washy. There's some kind of like underhanded plan, right? Because maybe they evolved that way because in historical societies it was too dangerous to do things directly, okay? But it's incredibly frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating. But I understand it's almost painful for them to be directed. I've seen the look on the face, it almost hurts them. So for them, in their culture, and this is kind of, if you want to take as advice for ND and autistic people, you can. If you don't, then don't. This is just the way I see it, okay? So do what you want, anyone. But the way I see it, this is pen, right? A pen, right? There's no brackets, no translation, there's no manipulation going on, but in theirs it is. So. Anyway.